Okay, we are live. Pandit, you ready to get nuts?
I am ready.
Okay. On today's episode of Playing Small is Cancelled, we have an exclusive treat. We're joined by the mindful leadership expert, author, and former urban monk, just to name a few. He's dedicated to helping organizations foster a mindful work culture, leading to greater workplace happiness, employee engagement, and stronger customer rapport. No big deal. From his unique journey living as a monk in the Lower East Side of Manhattan for 15 years to advising global companies like Google and NASA, he brings profound insights on resilience, leadership, stress management, and work life integration, and a whole lot more big facts. Please welcome the inspiring, transformative, and enlightening, the handsome and multifaceted Pandit Dasa. How you doing, Pandit?
I'm doing great, Craig. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Loving it.
Yeah, my pleasure. We were having an amazing conversation before we record, and at some point, we're like, let's save the juicy stuff for the show. I'm so pumped with today's conversation. For our listeners, in case you're not familiar, my best suggestion: do a deep dive, play catch up, grab his books, his website, hire him to speak, all the things. What I think is most valuable today is we have an unbelievable conversation. Before we dive in, I have a little icebreaker for you. Are you ready for me?
Sure.
Pundit, what does it mean for you to be spiritual?
Oh, okay. To be spiritual. Well, I think it means many things, right? I can go obviously in many different directions. What it means to be spiritual. One is spiritual means to understand the spirit within inside this body, right? If the word is there, spiritual, it's the root is spirit. So understanding that we are spiritual beings inside this sort of flesh and the structure of flesh and bones, right? So first of all is understanding that, and then saying at the same time understanding that everyone else is like that as well. And then when we can understand that we are something spiritual inside this body and that others are also a spirit inside this body, then you realize that we all have something very deep and profound in common with each other. And that if we can focus on that common ground, that spiritual commonality that we all share, you can almost see right away we could reduce so much of our conflict and discrimination and hate simply by understanding we are at the root, we're all very, very similar. On the outside, we may wear different clothing, different color of clothing, different style of clothing, but on the inside, we're human beings looking to love and serve and looking to receive love.
Yeah, beautifully said. What an unbelievable answer. And it's just a different consciousness to really understand that, right? That we're all a soul inside this astronaut suit or flesh and bones. Obviously, yours a little more handsome than mine, but underneath, we're all connected. And when you understand that, it takes you to a different consciousness to really go about the world, and maybe even be a little bit more empathetic and compassionate.
Yeah, absolutely. When you recognize the common ground, the things that we share, then it's much easier to have empathy, right? If we just move through the world thinking I'm better than others, if that's our consciousness, then there is no such thing. You can't have empathy with that consciousness. But if you really feel like I'm here, I've been put on this earth to serve others in some capacity or another, right? Then you don't see yourself as like necessarily better than everyone else because I'm here to serve. That's it. We don't need to make that comparison whether I'm better or someone else. I'm just here to serve. That's all, right?
It's so interesting that, you know, in this 1% reality, this 3D world, there's a lot of things during the human experience that bring us joy, such as money, relationships, sex, a smoothie, a massage, all these things. And they're absolutely part of the human experience. But none of those things will actually create lasting fulfillment. But when you're connected to something and you're serving and you're channeling the gifts that were given to you and you're sharing without an agenda, that's really the way to create lasting fulfillment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And then you realize that happiness is something that is in our control. We can choose to live a life of service, right? All other types of happiness is fleeting. It doesn't mean that it doesn't make our life easier. Money and these things can definitely make our life easier, convenient, more comfortable. But having deep, meaningful relationships are I feel is one of the most important things that we can all aspire for. Because without that, everything else may still leave us feeling lonely and empty on the inside. If we don't have people to share our gifts with, then it's all, what is it all for? How much can somebody live off of fame and sort of just that superficial recognition that you get when you step off the stage for a few moments, right? If you have no one waiting for you, caring for you, then it's all sort of meaningless to some degree. It's empty.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. Look at dopamine here right now. There's so many places we could take this conversation, which is one of the reasons why I want to encourage everyone to grab your book and check out your content. It's awesome. We'll dive into a couple topics that you talk about that I think will be super helpful today. This is kind of a big question. We'll do the best we can to narrow it down. For anyone listening right now that might catch replay, what is something tangible somebody could do to focus their mind?
Well, first of all, I like to say that we have to close out the apps in our mind. That when I was living as a monk, this is something we would try to pay attention to. We realized that there was this one very popular phrase that the mind can you be your best friend or your worst enemy. Mm-hmm. And I think more often than not, it's our worst enemy. And the reason it's our worst enemy is because it likes to focus on the negative things that have happened to us in the past. It recalls and remembers, regurgitates them over and over again. And it just drains us. That's all that happens. That nothing is like, you have an argument with someone and then you start replaying that whole argument all over again. Like, what good is that doing? It's just so painful, actually.
Been there more than I'd like to admit.
Yeah, totally. Me too. Or when we're not dredging up the past, we are coming up with worst case scenarios about the future, the doomsday scenarios. And so neither of these is helpful. And both of these activities in the mind are happening automatically. It's not like, I don't think either you and I choose intentionally to think of something negative from the past. It just pops up like an app. It just opens up. And we can't be focused if our mind is like racing in the past and going to the future. It's like, because those two realities don't exist right now in the moment. So the only way to be focused is to be present, to be attentive to what's happening right here, right now. And whoever I'm interacting with, to give them the full attention by starting by putting this away, and then really giving them the full attention. And whatever work we're doing, making sure we're giving our full attention to that work. And if a distracting thought comes up in our mind, we can ask ourselves, is this thought helping me? Well, it may be a creative idea. So that is yes, this could be helpful. But if it's all of a sudden an argument that I had with somebody 5 days ago in which I thought they were really unfair and they were really nasty and they're the worst person on this planet, and why did they do that? Like, okay, what is all that accomplishing? Nothing at all. So then we take a deep breath, we close that out and come back to the present moment, which is what really matters, which is really where we can be productive.
Yeah, so good. And it's so true. We often, when I think of the word probability, it's probably based upon past experiences. So we start to assume stuff. And so many times we're worrying and creating stress for literally no reason. And I like to think that's the opponent or the ego or Satan, whatever we want to call them, that's constantly trying to cause chaos in our minds. And one thing you do an unbelievable job at it is to kind of quiet that and focus on what really matters. I imagine your time as a monk, 15 years, played a heavy role in being able to do that so effectively.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, my mind still wanders. It still dredges up old things. It's kind of like trained somehow. That's our conditioning. Mm-hmm. It's just going to go there. But I guess what I'm I've practiced is recognizing that I'm in the past right now, or I'm coming up with a doomsday scenario right now. So I catch myself before it goes on for too long, and I bring it back. I'm like, wait a second, look how great everything is now. Everything is fine. Let me focus on this. If I set up my future by focusing on the present, it's like, if I get in a car and I have a certain destination in mind, and if my mind is thinking about the past or worst case scenario about the future, that means it's getting distracted from the driving I have to do now, so there's a greater chance of accident. But if I stay focused in the present moment, it'll get to its destination, which is where I'm hoping for. So my future will be determined by how focused I can be right now.
I actually think that you would know better than me, but based on my experience, mindfulness is the portal to expansion. Meaning, when it's just me and you, we're not worried about anything that we have going on an hour that happened 30 minutes ago. It's just you and I connecting, building rapport. It's a different energy. That's where miracles can come in, and we're just able to get really, really, really deep and create the best connection. And I think that if someone were to take that approach with literally every activity that they did, from brushing their teeth, spending time with their dog, their partner, whatever the case may be, sales calls, over the course of the day, you would have so much momentum. So many of us probably are not really in the moment, even during a specific moment.
Yeah, we're not. It's just like I said, the mind has often been described like a monkey mind, right? Imagine like a wild monkey that's in a cage. It's just like itching to get out, right? It's not that our mind is looking to get out, but that's kind of how it is. And it's become, the monkey's become even wilder because of our smart devices.
Mm,
Become really almost like not, almost to a point of like not being tameable. Simply because now we're feeding so much information into our mind because of social media and all our devices that we're agitating it even more. So it's really, I mean, right? How many times does it happen where you're having a conversation with someone and there's some kind of notification buzzes on your phone? And how tempting is it now to check that? And you realize that you're not even listening fully to this person. You're only hearing 70% because your mind, 30% is like, man, this could be something really important. And it's almost never going to be anything that can't wait another 30 minutes.
100%.
It's never anything like that. And in my experience, that can't wait for 30 minutes. So I think, the device has made it so much harder to be mindful of ourselves, of our own self-care, of our own mental health, and what to speak about the well-being of others. And sort of like that's sort of the whole idea of mindful leadership, right? That's the whole idea of mindful leadership. Are we mindful of our own mental health? Because if as a leader we're not mindful of our own mental health, how are we going to treat the mental health of our colleagues and coworkers and employees? We're totally not going to care for that.
100%. I think that's so profound. And I was looking at some of your content, which I suggest everybody do. And you're basically talking about one of the best ways to lead by example is in the way that we take care of our own well being. And I'd never heard that articulated like that. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people in leadership role think that their main goal is to rah rah and pump everyone up. Okay, we got to more sales, hit the numbers, exceed the numbers, and then the rah rah can also be just that in itself can be depleting someone's mental health, because if someone is going through a tragedy in their life or a setback in their personal life or financial life, and now what message are they getting is that high pressure, and that if I don't achieve this, hit this goal, I could be losing my job because this guy's so fired up that is not going to tolerate anything less than perfection. So I think that's really important, that for leaders to have that empathy, to understand that, okay, yes, company goals are important. However, a company is made up of many parts. Like a car is made up of the engine, the tires, and the external chassis, and so many different things. A company is made up of its people, and a company's health is directly related to the health of its employees. Like if your car part, if you have one flat tire and then the engine's not working and this hose isn't working and that's not working, how far is that vehicle going to take you? So if
Not
we
very
have a bunch of, if we have a bunch of employees who are struggling with their mental health, that vehicle is not going to function, because what kind of communication are they going to have with clients? Somebody who's struggling with their own mental health. How effective is their communication going to be with their clients and colleagues? And what message are they sending to those clients? And do those clients really want to be dealing with individuals who seem to be maybe a little malnourished mentally and emotionally and physically? I don't think so. So I think that we really, especially if we're in a managerial leadership role, think it's really important to take the time out, and instead of all the rah-rah speeches and hit the number speeches, take time out to understand your people and what they're going through, and find out what we can do to assist them, not just in their productivity and numbers, but also in terms of their mental health and overall well-being. Like, am I providing them the tools to be mentally and emotionally happy and fit, or are they on the path to burnout?
Yeah. This is unbelievable. I think that the old style of commanding and controlling people or employees is a little bit outdated, and we should lean more into trust and inspire as a way to lead. And what you were just talking about perfectly segues into this. I know there's a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs in our audience and so forth that have employees, or even if you are an employee, how do you maintain the self-care and mental health in a very fast-paced and stressful environment? We were kind of talking about that here in New York City before we hopped on, but what is something that we can do to maintain that in a rather stressful, fast-paced environment?
Well, first thing we have to realize that no one's going to do it for us.
Mm.
And if we have a certain destination that we want to achieve, either financially, career wise, if the vehicle that's going to get you there isn't properly taken care of, higher risk it's going to break down. You want to drive across the country, haven't had your oil changed in 10,000 miles, haven't had it properly serviced, looked at. Yeah, you can start the journey, you just don't know what to expect. So I think first of all, we have to realize it is essential. It's not just like, should I, how can I? No, you have to do it. If you want to get to where you want to be, even relationship wise, if you're running on burnout, how do you think that's not going to affect your personal relationships?
Of course.
100%, million percent. So how can we neglect our own self-care? And a lot of times when it comes to self-care, people focus on physical health and well-being, but we neglect our mental health. And in my opinion, the way I like to describe it is that if we're only focusing on our physical health and ignoring our mental health, that's like taking your car to the car wash, but not to the mechanic. It'll look shiny on the outside, and we're expert at looking shiny outside.
It's a great analogy.
Incredible on the outside. And a car wash takes 15 minutes. Mechanic takes longer because more work is needed. There's a deeper dive there. And sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't need to take this deeper dive. I'll just go jogging, or I'll just go to the gym. And those are great. But mental health requires a little deeper dive into understanding, how am I really doing? So how each of us goes about it, I think, is a little individual. But my main thing is, make sure you are taking care of physical and mental at the same time. Like, I think going to the gym and running and swimming, they're all great for physical and mental health, no doubt. But I think mental health also requires a little understanding of what's really your stressor. How am I reacting to people? And why are these people pressing certain buttons? Are they actually pressing my buttons, or is it something inside of me that's getting pressed? Because these other three people don't seem to be bothered by these people. It's just me. So I'm carrying around something that they are pressing. So I think it requires a deeper dive. And I think one way is in it. I think we should no longer be embarrassed to take care of our mental health. Like, you're not embarrassed to go to a dentist. In fact, when you're at the dentist's office, you're in a chair, you might take a picture and post it on Facebook or Instagram and get up more likes than ever before. I think we should be okay about our mental fitness. Hey, I'm going to go for therapy. Great. We should applaud that, actually. That is worthy of applause. Like, you're recognizing you're stressed, that you may not have all the answers, and you're going to go to a coach, a guide, a therapist to help us understand what's really going on up here, because what goes on up here affects the rest of our life. The World Health Organization said there is no such thing as health without mental health.
I could not agree more. We could not be more in the same frequency. And one of the conversations I'd love to bring into light with a lot of the big names we have on the podcast is talking about this exact stuff, because growing up for a man, probably our age and a little bit older, if you asked for help or if you showed extreme vulnerability, it was kind of frowned upon, looked upon as a weakness. But now I actually think the exact opposite. It shows courage, strength, and it's good. And I never thought of it like you just said, but like, oh, you're going to a coach, a mentor, a therapy. Good for you. That shows that you're working on yourself. You're not complacent. You want to improve. You know, there's more to do for your mindset, for everything. I think that's so beautiful. And I hope that as a collective and a lot of the work that you're doing and me and so forth, we can get to a place where it's actually considered, I don't want to say cool, but the right thing to do is to constantly seek help and work on yourself and get support.
Yeah, I want it to look courageous,
Mm.
right? I think that's how it should be. Like, okay, it takes courage to do it, and like you said, it's the right thing to do. It is the thing to do. How can you not do it? The question is, how can you not do it? And what's interesting is most of our life, from school, it's all PE, physical education. Mental was never even a conversation.
Mhm.
So Michael Phelps, right? The most decorated Olympian of all time, 20 plus medals. He mentioned that when he was actively competing, that they'd given him like a dozen coaches to take care of his physical health, watching every part of his physical health. Like he didn't really have anyone for his mental health. Like it just was like kind of like like mental, what's that? Just make sure you're healthy, you can swim the laps, you're eating right, doing the right exercises. So it's just something that just gets ignored because, again, out of sight, out of mind. You can't see it, and we're good at hiding it. We're good at masking it, and especially I think for men, it is harder because we've been so sort of indoctrinated that boys don't cry, or like we don't have tear glands, like we weren't created with tear glands, like somehow they're not supposed to work. That's just an artificial thing that was accidentally put there, and you got to make sure you suppress it and don't let it out. And so I think it's just made it that much harder for us to be vulnerable. But I'm hoping that gradually we can realize that it's okay to be vulnerable at the right time, at the right place, in front of the right people, and that vulnerable. Because also, I've heard this from some of my doctor friends that more men have heart attacks than women do. And there's an interesting reason behind it, because women, much easier for them to talk about their emotions, express it. They get upset, they'll cry, and they'll, get it out. It's out now. Now the heart's light. We kind of hold it in, gotta be tough, gotta be strong, but then it's putting a pressure on the heart that at some point it's going to show up because we have just pushed it down, pushed it down. The heart has a capacity like our mind. It's a muscle that has a capacity. You lift way more than you can handle, you're going to tear and rip and break stuff. And the same thing happens to our mind, even though it's not a physical thing that you can see, it will crack. We see plenty of cases of that. The heart will also give in, give out, all right, at a certain point if we have stored up way more than we can handle. And see, and add that to a leadership position in a corporation, in a high, fast-paced, stress-free, a very stressed environment, leader who's got to be leading and guiding all of these people and encouraging and pushing. Imagine how much pressure their mind and their heart is under.
Yeah.
If they're not taking care of those two components, that's just a formula that's unsustainable, and it's a formula, a recipe for disaster for their mental health, for their personal relationships and professional relationships.
Yeah, you nailed it. And it's like I run marathons, right? And they're tough, they're challenging, especially for me. And so if I run one and keep running them, but I don't put an emphasis on recovery, I'll run myself into the ground. Like you said, things just won't work the same. It's the same concept, but specifically mental health, stress, and preserve the heart.
Yeah, exactly. The body is a machine, which includes the mind. And if there's no time for recovery, you had a stressful day, you don't recover, you just like, okay, I'm going to go to the bar and drink away the misery. Well, you just added a ton more stress to your mind and body. It didn't do any good, actually did more harm than good.
Yeah.
So, right? So we have to really think about, yeah, our body needs time to recover. At the end of the day, what can I do? Can I do some meditation? Can I do some exercise? Can I spend time with a friend, a quality time with a good friend? These are the things we need. And also when it comes to like friendship, as we get busier in life, it's harder to make friends.
True.
It's harder to make friends. It's also harder to keep the friends that we've had built up during high school and college because everybody gets busy with work and life and so much stuff going on. We need to really emphasize developing and maintaining positive social connections outside and inside of work. Even inside, we need to have good friends. The Harvard Business Review, there's an article that says that having positive social connections in the workplace, there's a lot of benefits. People get sick less often when they have positive social connections at work. They're less depressed. They display more mental acuity. They remember longer and they learn faster, and they perform better on the job. So when you have positive social connections, that means you have a support system around you. You don't have to look over your shoulder because you know someone's got your back. Just knowing someone's got your back provides us a certain peace of mind up here. And that allows you to relax a little bit instead of always being on the edge. It allows you to relax. That means that lower stress. That means you're less edgy when you talk to people. You're more relaxed, you're more peaceful, you're more calm, and people pick up on that. So we really need to emphasize this positive social connections at work, but also outside with our friends, with our significant others, with our family members, having quality time and really making it quality, not distracted time, quality, focused, present time.
I love it. So good, brother. A couple more nuggets before we land the plane. One of the things that you talk about is creating a sense of belonging in the workplace. What is something we can do to create that?
I think it starts with taking the initiative to reach out to our colleagues, even if you're working virtually, and asking them how they're doing. Not work related necessarily. How are you doing? How's it going? Is there anything I can do to assist or support you right now? Is there anything I can take off your plate? I just wanted to reach out and see if I can make myself available. We're on the same team. We're in it here. And, I like working with you. I just want to see if I can help in some way. Or you see a colleague struggling. Instead of judging them, saying, hey, I noticed that you may be going through some challenges. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? I just want to let you know I'm here for you. If I can support you, please let me know. Don't hesitate to reach out. Like if somebody would approach us like that, my gosh, it would just feel so good knowing that someone's approaching you without judgment, without some ulterior motive, right? Especially if you're in a leadership role, to do that is really, really powerful. To reach out to colleagues or your direct reports and asking them if there's something you can do to assist them during this challenging time, because maybe someone lost a loved one. Maybe someone had a financial crisis. Maybe they're going through their own health crisis of some kind. Who knows? As human beings, we go through a lot in life. So, creating that sense of belonging, we can do it for others. And if we do it for others, others will do it for us. Just reaching out, having that empathetic approach towards others' challenging situations. And another really important thing is making sure that we're not, especially in a leadership role, that we're not creating an environment that inspires the formation of cliques at work.
Cliques?
Yeah. It's not just a high school thing. It happens in corporations too, where you isolate. It's natural to want to be around others that are like-minded. So that's share a similar energy. Great. But we want to make sure that we're not isolating others because of cultural differences or religious differences or, racial differences or whatever it is, making people feel like they're not welcome in my little clique or group. Because what happens is at some point you may need to go to that person and ask for their help. It's always going to happen at some point. And you're working for the same company now. How likely are they to say, hey, yeah, absolutely, I'll get that to you. I'll do that for you. Right. They may give you the wrong information to screw you up. They may not respond, holding up your project. So I think we, as a leader, we need to pay attention to our cliques forming that are unhealthy and that are isolating and excluding certain people. So I think we do need to be very alert and mindful about that, especially as a leader, and to make sure that, yeah, you want to appreciate and recognize, but if openly we're showing favoritism to others, that is not healthy. That could lead to a toxic environment.
Yeah. I love all this. And one thing that any human really wants to experience is the ability to feel seen, right? Especially like, us men, like we don't want so much, but for me, like my fiance, like just I'm proud of you, or how was your day? Little things like that, or just checking in, right? It,
Yeah.
it goes such a long way. And it's something so simple, not easy, but simple. It just comes with a little bit of effort and consistency. Anybody can apply that. Check in on people that you care about, your work, your colleagues,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Just go the extra mile, and that creates much more meaningful and collaborative relationships, I would say.
Yeah, and it makes it more fun to be in that work environment. And
100%.
there's plenty of research that shows. I mean, Wharton Business School did some research where they were doing fundraising calls, and they divided the fundraising team into two groups. One team made the calls like they normally would. The other team, before making the calls, received a call from the manager, the supervisor, appreciating the work that they were about to do. That other team made 50% more phone calls than the first team, simply because they felt valued. And when a colleague values you, appreciates you, it immediately creates a bond between you. You're like, man, this is a nice guy, Like, I hope I have a chance to help this person out in the near future. Like, that's how you automatically start to feel like, I want to appreciate something about them, right? Like, when someone says something good, you naturally want to say something good back to them, and you're going to look for an opportunity to do that. And that's the environment we want. And you don't have to be in a leadership role. You don't have to have a title to appreciate. Anyone can do it, and we should do it because it helps us create a better and more positive and mindful workplace environment.
Yeah, this is so good. This is the juicy stuff. I have two final nuggets before we land the plane. One of them is you talk often, obviously, about reducing stress and anxiety, and one of the ways to do that is by eliminating unnecessary distractions, and use the example of closing unused apps in our mind. I think that's so catchy. What exactly do you mean by that, and what is something that somebody can do immediately to close an unused app?
So, an unused app is sort of what I was talking about earlier in our conversation, meditating on negative things from the past or coming up with worst case scenarios. And our mind's got a ton of them up there. So, or just other stuff that's in the back burner of our mind. There's a lot of stuff on the back burner. So, and they're all taking up a little space, just like when you have apps open on your phone. They're all taking up a little energy from your phone. You have too many apps open, that's when it's going to freeze up.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to freeze up. So it helps to take a moment and think about and to recognize, what are the different things that I'm thinking of right now? And how valuable are they to what I'm doing right now? Are they adding value to what I need to get done right now? A lot of things that are in our mind aren't adding value right now to what we're doing. So that's when we can say, take a deep breath and breathe it out. Because just that action of taking a deep breath and breathing it out, it's bringing you into the present moment. Like, now you're in the present. You were in the past, you were worrying about something in the future, but now you're in the present. Just recognizing it, taking a deep breath, breathing it out, and say, I'll get to that later. So recognition, deep breath, breathe it out, and come back to the present. It's a little harder than it sounds, simply because we oftentimes, a thought enters our mind. We could be in that thought for 1, 2, 3 minutes before we even realize we're in there.
Yep.
It's hard to catch ourselves at the beginning of a thought. We catch ourselves in the middle of it because we don't even know what sparks it and how it begins. Like a weed, you won't see it until it comes out of the ground. It's starting in there, but you won't see it till it's like, is that a weed? I might pull it out, So it's very interesting. The mind is very subtle. It's working all the time without us knowing it, doing all kinds of things. But part of mindfulness is to become aware of what's happening up here. It's like looking at a fish tank from a distance. Looking at a fish inside of a fish tank is like looking at the thoughts in your mind, recognizing what they are, and knowing which ones to push aside and which ones to focus on.
So good. So effective. Love it. And one more. I think you talk about this a lot in your first book. How important is it for you personally to harness the principle of forgiveness?
I think life would be really miserable if we held on to everything all the time. I remember the Dalai Lama said something similar to about forgiveness, but he was talking about anger. But the same thing, if you're not forgiving, he's like, if you're not willing to let go of it, it's like you're the one getting hurt because you're the one holding the hot coal of that pain. That person doesn't even realize it. The one who they may not even be, they may be completely, totally fine moving through the day. They don't even remember the situation that you're burning up about. So I think that it's a key essential principle in almost every religious tradition out there, forgiveness. And I just don't see how we can, like, if we're just going to hold grudges all the time, we are literally going to shorten our life. Like, literally, we're going to shorten our lifespan because we're going to burn up like a forest fire. You know, like a forest fire that happens in California, those fires, burning thousands of acres. We're burning up thousands of acres of sanity in our mind if we're holding on to, you know, things that people have said or done. And I'm not saying that we can easily from things that have happened to us. Yeah, some of these things may be very painful and we may hold on to them for a really long time. I do think actively, whatever that means, we need to work on letting that go. And what I think is that, what I say is that, and I try to practice it myself, I think about the painful things that have happened and I try to extract the wisdom that's locked away in that pain. Because each pain for moment in our life contains a lot of wisdom. So we have to be able to dig out the nuggets from that leap of pile of garbage, and use that to further our life. Because we want to be able to take gold from a pile of garbage. If somebody said that's the stinkiest garbage, but there's a gold bar in there, you can be sure every human being is going to dive right into that pile of garbage. Let me get that gold out. So yes, we have pain and difficulties and suffering we've been through, and there's a lot of gold in there. We just need to be able to have the strength and courage to dig it out. That's going to improve us and give us wisdom and maturity to help us grow and take on the next challenges that life is definitely going to throw our way.
What an unbelievable analogy that you're great at. Dig through the garbage to get the gold out. Because it's really only with pain, obstacles, losses, failures, whatever, however you define failures, is where we really have that opportunity to grow to and expand to that next level of expansion. Because even like athletes will say, like, you don't get so much out of wins. But when there's
Yeah,
pain, when there's a setback, there's wisdom to extract that we can grow from it and apply to future endeavors to expand our vessel and so forth. And I just love the way you said that if you knew there was a piece of gold in that, you go in there in 2 seconds. So forgive, but definitely extract the lesson.
yeah, 100%. Without the lesson, what's the point? Otherwise, without the lesson, we'll end up in that same situation again.
Right.
We'll let someone else do the same thing to us again.
Yeah. This is unbelievable. I could talk to you all day. Um, Before we end with a little rapid fire, we'll have fun, maybe 1 or 2 word answers. With all the hats that you're wearing, with all that you have going on, what are you personally most excited about right now?
Well, I'm excited about being a dad. I've got a 16-month-old running around.
Congrats, brother.
Thank you. It's beautiful, exciting, and challenging in ways that I couldn't have ever imagined.
That's what I hear. God willing, I can't wait for that. We're getting married in September, but
Awesome.
after that. But congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. You realize that all the laziness and the selfishness kind of has to go out the window when you got a little one running around and demanding your attention. So I'm definitely excited about the lessons it's already teaching me, and I'm just getting a little insight into some of the lessons that I'm going to be learning as the baby learns to do different things and learns to figure out who they are and then starts to challenge themselves and myself. So that's one thing I'm excited about. And of course, I'm always very excited to, get up in front of audiences, talk about mindful leadership, how to create that healthy and positive and productive workplace culture. So I'm always excited about getting on the next stage and speaking to audiences and seeing the difference that I can make for an organization and also individually for employees.
I love it. And you're making a massive impact. And I know you just get warmed up. I imagine you have your hands full now with the little one, but
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Proud of you. and I can't wait to build the friendship. Before we land the plane, we're gonna have a little fun, maybe 1 or 2 word answers, a little rapid fire. Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Let's do it. Favorite movie?
Matrix.
Claire. Can't go wrong. Makes sense too.
Yeah.
Those that operate a different consciousness see that movie in a totally different light.
Oh, I have a whole lecture I give on that based on the Eastern philosophical thought process, because the movie was based on that.
Yeah, I would love to check that out. I don't know if you have any recordings, but that sounds awesome. Okay, number 2. Your last meal on Earth would be?
A freshly home cooked meal by my wife in the company of my family.
Sounds perfect. Love it. Okay, your favorite guilty pleasure?
Ice cream and pizza back to back.
What flavor ice cream?
Butter pecan, I think.
Ooh, back to back. I like that. Okay. Couple more. Your favorite workout?
Going for walks and meditation. I know that's 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Workout for the mind.
Yeah. Trust me, I get it. That's awesome. And I bet it's nice where you live right now to go for a walk.
Yeah, it's peaceful, no traffic. It's just calm. It's nice. Weather's good most of the time. So yeah, I like it.
Okay, good. 2 more. Favorite book, not including one of yours?
The Journey Home. It's by my teacher, who's been a monk for 50 years. I love it. Amazing life lessons in there.
Great. And last but not least, very deep stuff. Your favorite musician?
My favorite musician. Oh my gosh. I haven't listened to like the regular music for a really long time, so you kind of stumped me there.
Good. We love the challenge.
I'd have to really think about it. So I listen to a lot of like spiritual music. And so there's a lot of different musicians who have like spiritual music, mantras and things like that. So I don't really have one favorite. I actually don't have one favorite. There's a lot of different ones that I like.
I like it. Mindset of abundance. Too many.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know our audience and community is going to love you, fall in love with you in 2 seconds. What can we put in the show notes? Where can they catch up? Maybe hire you to speak, involve, grab the book. What's the best place to send them?
Best places. I mean, most of my information is right on my LinkedIn profile, right? It's right there. But my website is just like my name, panditdasa.com. PANDITDASA.com. You can see my different speeches that I give. You can see the companies I've given them at. There are sample videos on there. My book, Mindfulness for the Wandering Mind, which came out last year. You can find links to it there. And you can contact me through there and LinkedIn. I think those are the 2 best ways.
Perfect. This was so much fun, brother. Fun to hang out for 1 second. I want to connect with you after. I want you to know the definition of authenticity, kindness, and mindfulness. Thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
Thank you so much, Craig. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.